Sarah glanced at her watch, 10:48 p.m. The hands of the clock seemed to mock her, each tick a reminder of the dwindling time she had left. Just a few more emails? She sighed, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The rhythmic clacking of the keys was the only sound in the otherwise silent office, a testament to her relentless dedication. The deadline for the Henderson case was looming, and she was the only one left in the office. The empty desks around her stood as silent witnesses to her solitary struggle, their owners long gone home to their families. Sarah's stomach rumbled, a reminder that dinner was a distant memory. She couldn't remember the last time she had eaten, her focus entirely consumed by the mountain of work before her. She pushed back a strand of hair that had fallen loose from her ponytail. The small gesture was a brief respite, a momentary distraction from the overwhelming pressure she felt. The glow of her computer screen illuminated the otherwise dark office. The harsh blue light cast long shadows, making the room feel even more desolate. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled, oblivious to her late-night struggles. The bustling city seemed a world away, its vibrancy a stark contrast to the quiet tension of her office. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes, the strain of staring at the screen for hours taking its toll. She knew she couldn't afford to rest, not with so much still left to do. She reached for her coffee cup, the lukewarm liquid offering a small comfort. The caffeine was her only ally in this battle against time. A stack of papers loomed on her desk, each one a piece of the puzzle she needed to solve. The Henderson case was complex, and every detail mattered. She flipped through the documents, her eyes scanning for any discrepancies. Every page was a potential breakthrough, a chance to find the missing link. Sarah jotted down notes, her mind racing to connect the dots. The pressure was immense, but she thrived on it, her determination unwavering. She stretched her arms, trying to relieve the tension in her muscles. The hours of sitting had taken their toll, but she couldn't afford to stop now. Another glance at the clock. 11:15 p.m. Time was slipping away, but Sarah was determined to meet the deadline. A small smile played on her lips as she thought about the satisfaction of completing the task. The long hours, the missed meals, the exhaustion, it would all be worth it in the end. With renewed focus, she returned to her keyboard. The night was far from over, but Sarah was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Outside, the city continued its dance of lights, unaware of the lone warrior battling against the clock. Sarah took a deep breath and pressed on, determined to conquer the deadline. A low groan echoed from the hallway, breaking through the silence. Sarah froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She swiveled in her chair, peering into the darkness beyond her cubicle. The office was eerily quiet, the usual hum of electronics absent. Sarah tried to rationalize the sound. An old building like this was bound to creak and groan, right? She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing pulse. It was probably just the building settling, but the unsettling feeling lingered. She glanced at the clock on her desk. It was well past midnight. The office, usually bustling with activity during the day, now felt like a ghost town. The dim, flickering lights cast long shadows that danced eerily on the walls. Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of horror movies she had seen, where the protagonist always ignored the first signs of danger. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the irrational fear. She stood up slowly, her chair creaking in protest. The sound seemed deafening in the stillness. Sarah hesitated, then decided to investigate. She grabbed her phone, using its flashlight to cut through the darkness. Each step she took echoed loudly, amplifying her anxiety. The hallway stretched out before her, seemingly endless. She could feel the cold air brushing against her skin, sending shivers down her spine. As she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her eyes darted around, searching for any sign of movement. The silence was oppressive, pressing down on her like a weight. She reached the end of the hallway and turned the corner, only to find more empty offices. The groans she had heard earlier seemed to have vanished into thin air. Sarah let out a shaky breath, trying to convince herself that it was all in her head. She turned to head back to her desk. but a sudden noise made her jump. It was a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. She spun around, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but there was nothing there. Her heart raced even faster, and she could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Determined to find the source of the noise, she continued her search. She checked each office, peering into the darkness, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The building was old after all, and old buildings made strange noises. A feeling of unease gripped her. She couldn't shake the sensation that she wasn't alone. Finally, she returned to her desk, her nerves frayed. She sat down, trying to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to the strange noises and the eerie silence. She knew she wouldn't be able to concentrate until she figured out what was going on. With a sigh, she decided to call it a night and head home. As she packed up her things, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder one last time, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. But then she heard it again. A soft thud, this time coming from the supply room down the hall. Sarah's grip tightened on her mouse. The supply room was always locked at night. She listened intently, holding her breath. The air seemed thick and heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Goosebumps prickled her arms. Her instincts screamed at her to pack up and leave. Now! Curiosity, however, had a way of silencing her better judgment. Sarah slowly rose from her chair, her gaze fixed on the supply room door. She grabbed a heavy stapler from her desk, her makeshift weapon feeling woefully inadequate. With each step down the deserted hallway, the shadows seemed to deepen and twist around her. The air grew colder, sending a shiver down her spine. She could have sworn she felt a presence behind her. The supply room door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning her forward. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for the handle. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The room was in disarray, boxes overturned, papers scattered across the floor, dust motes danced in the single ray of light spilling in from the hallway. And then she saw it. A framed photograph lying face down on the floor. Sarah's heart lurched as she picked up the photo and turned it over. The dim light from the desk lamp cast eerie shadows across the room, making the atmosphere even more unsettling. She had been working late trying to finish a project when she stumbled upon the old, dusty photo hidden under a stack of papers. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the room itself was holding its breath. It was a portrait of a young woman, her eyes wide and vacant, a haunting smile on her lips. The photo seemed to capture a moment frozen in time, a moment that held a dark secret. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the woman in the photo was staring directly at her, as if trying to communicate something from beyond the grave. The longer she looked, the more she felt a strange connection to the woman, a connection that sent shivers down her spine. The woman's nameplate was visible on her desk in the picture, Emily Carter, junior associate. Sarah remembered Emily well. She'd been a bright and ambitious young woman, always eager to take on new challenges. But there was something about her that always seemed a bit off, a sense of sadness that lingered behind her cheerful facade. Sarah had often wondered what had happened to Emily, why she had suddenly disappeared without a word. Emily Carter, the associate who had vanished from the firm without a trace 6 months ago. Her disappearance had been the subject of much speculation and gossip around the office. Some said she had run away to start a new life, while others whispered about more sinister possibilities. The police had conducted an investigation, but no leads had ever been found. It was as if Emily had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions and a sense of unease. A cold whisper brushed against Sarah's ear, sending chills down her spine. She spun around, but there was no one there. The office was empty, silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, a trick of the mind brought on by the late hour and the unsettling photo. But deep down she knew that something was very wrong. She's still here. the voice hissed. Sarah's blood ran cold as the words echoed in her mind. She felt a presence in the room, a sense of being watched. The shadows seemed to move, to shift and dance in the corners of her vision. She clutched the photo tightly, her knuckles white with fear. What did the voice mean? Was Emily trying to reach out to her? To send her a message from the other side? Or was there something more sinister at play? Something that Sarah couldn't yet understand? The questions swirled in her mind, leaving her feeling more alone and afraid than ever before. Sarah screamed, dropping the photo as if it were on fire. She stumbled back, her pulse racing. Turning to flee, she slammed into something solid, the impact knocking the breath out of her. Panic surged through her as she struggled to regain her balance. The air felt heavy, suffocating. She had to get out, now. Scrambling to her feet, Sarah's eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of the voice. But there was no one there. Only the overturned boxes and scattered papers, silent witnesses to her terror. Yet she could still feel it, a cold, unseen presence lurking in the shadows, watching her every move. The air crackled with a strange energy, a palpable sense of dread that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah backed away slowly, never taking her eyes off the spot where she thought she had seen a figure. She tripped over a box, falling hard on her hands and knees. Tears streamed down her face, a mixture of fear and adrenaline. This couldn't be happening. It was just a building, an empty office. There was a logical explanation for all of this, wasn't there? As she scrambled back, her fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. It was the photograph of Emily Carter. The young woman in the picture stared up at her, her eyes filled with an unsettling knowing. And then Sarah heard it again. A whisper, clear as day, right next to her ear. "You're next."